when the world is in crisis
การแก้ไขปัญหาโควิดถือเป็นวาระแห่งชาติ
and people are looking for hope and answers. Thai PBS World is there with you with the best minds of the day. Join us on Thai PBS World tonight, every weekdays at 7 p.m. Thai PBS World, we bring Thailand to the world.
สวัสดีค่ะ Very good evening. Welcome to our 7 o'clock news. Thai PBS World tonight. You are now with me, Natha Gomonwadin.
And I'm Nat Bunag in for Kuntep Chayong.
And Kunat, today the big news in Thailand is about quite alarming reaction from the case of Egyptian soldier who was found that infected with COVID-19, and he was welcomed to Thailand just about on the 8th of July. And this has caused panic among Thai public regarding the report that he was infected with COVID-19. Especially, he did not attend state quarantine and he went out to department store in Rayong province. And let's take a look at what the CCSA has press conference. Today, CCSA has a press conference regarding the panic caused by an Egyptian soldier who tested positive for coronavirus while visiting the eastern province of Rayong last week, has prompted the Prayut government to review all the exemptions granted to foreign arrivals as part of the easing of the lockdown measures. Worsening the panic was the revelation that a 9-year-old daughter of a Sudanese diplomat who arrived in Bangkok last week and stayed at a condominium was also found to be infected with the deadly virus. Health authorities are making a frantic search for people who have come into contact with the Egyptian soldier and the goal to alert them of the need for medical tests. And in Rayong, dozens of schools have suspended classes while tourism business operators express fears of another hit on tourism. At least 9 people are placed in high-risk group because of their proximity to the Egyptian soldier while he was staying at a hotel with his colleagues. They include hotel mates and managers and 2 van taffer who is being put on a 14-day quarantine along with 7 staff members of Utapao Airport. The Egyptian was one of the 31 aircrew of the Egyptian Air Force who were in Rayong last week. They arrived at Utapao International Airport on July the 8th with a permission from the Royal Thai Air Force before departing for Chengdu in China the next week and returning to Rayong again through Utapao Airport the same night and stay at Diwari Hotel. Speaking at a news briefing this morning, spokesman of the Center for COVID-19 Situation Administration, Dr. Taweesin Vissanuyothin, said the Egyptian broke the health safety protocol by leaving their hotel to visit shopping malls in downtown Rayong. Dr. Taweesin explained that the Egyptians were exempted from the compulsory 14-day quarantine under the health safety regulations governing foreign arrivals on the condition that they confine themselves to their place of accommodation.
At the same time, there was a tense moment between a group of health officials and some of the Egyptian soldiers who refused to have nasal swab tests after they were found to have ventured out of the hotel. Dr. Taweesin said it was not until the Egyptian embassy intervened did they all consent to a test, which found out that one of them was infected with the virus. He said health authorities are in the process of using the Thai Chana application to track about 1,800 people who were in the 2 shopping malls at the same time with the Egyptians. Meanwhile, in Bangkok, public health officials visited one ex-condominium in Sukhumvit area this morning to test staff members who had close contact with the family of a Sudanese diplomat whose 9-year-old daughter was found to be infected with COVID-19. The family of 6 arrived at Suvarnabhumi Airport on the 10th of July, and the girl tested positive at the airport. A second test conducted at a private hospital confirmed the result, and she was admitted for a treatment for lung inflammation. Chawin Sirinak, director of the health office of the Bangkok Metropolitan Administration, explained that the family were exempted from quarantine in a state facility. However, instead of quarantine themselves in a diplomatic compound as required, they chose to stay in a condominium. Meanwhile, Dr. Prisha Prempri, Deputy Director General of the Diseases Control Department, said that the condominium has its own safety measures, including temperature screening at all entrances and regular cleaning of the premises. He said health officials will trace all housemates and security guards who may have had contact with the family during their stay. The CCSA spokesman, Dr. Taweesin, admitted that the two incidents reflected badly on the efficiency of the authorities in dealing with the pandemic and apologized for what happened. However, in an immediate reaction to the incidents, Dr. Taweesin said the government conducted a review of the rules and regulations on foreign arrivals and moved quickly to plug what it sees as loopholes.
Yes, Kunat. Dr. Taweesin, he also said that from now on, all foreign diplomats will be subject to a 14-day quarantine at state facility upon their arrival in Thailand. That's quite a complete change. And the Thai authority had previously granted permission for another 8 flights of military personnel from Egypt to land in Thailand. But as a result of the Rayong incident, Dr. Taweesin said all the flights have been all cancelled. And all the current exemptions granted for foreign arrivals will be reviewed, he said. The Royal Thai Air Force explained that the Egyptian aircraft was allowed into Thailand for refueling and maintenance as part of the ongoing Thai-Egyptian military cooperation. It said the request was made by the Egyptian military through the Egyptian embassy in Bangkok and was endorsed by the Thai Foreign Ministry before the Royal Air Force gave the final green light. And that's the development of what's going on with the infection case of COVID-19 with a soldier from Egypt. And today there is immediate reaction from Egypt embassy to Thailand. They have issued a press statement to say apologize for what's really happened. The embassy said regarding news reports of the infection of an Egyptian military crew member, the embassy of the Arab Republic of Egypt in Bangkok has been following this incident with alarm and concern news report of the infection of an Egyptian military crew member with COVID-19 while transiting on a routine of Egyptian military flight comprised of 31 crew members through Rayong Utapao airport area during the period from 8 to July 11 this year. And the main concern for the embassy from the press statement, the embassy said, embassy would like to express its most sincere regret and sympathy to all those who may have been adversely affected by this unfortunate incident. And in this connection, the embassy would also like to take this opportunity to reassure the Thai public that the embassy has been working in close coordination with the relevant Thai authorities to ensure swift containment and mitigation of any possible threat to public health safety that may have been caused by this incident. It being the first of its kind in what has been continues to be a long and healthy working relationship between the two sides, which has overseen the smooth operation of Egyptian military aircraft to Thai airspace on frequent routine mission without any incident or complication. So overall it means the embassy expressed sympathy and concern to what happened.
Definitely, because the case here is definitely alarming and it caused panic for most of the Thai people already. But at the same time, People seem to have lost trust in the CCSA spokesman after he has always been praised for his work. So for months, the daily press briefing by Dr. Taweesin, the spokesman of the CCSA, was an appointment viewing for many. His calm and reassuring manner in providing the public with updates on the pandemic in Thailand has won the soft-spoken spokesman legions of fans. But with the Thai public still in the state of anxiety, despite the country's success in dealing with the virus, one single incident was enough to turn many against what was once seen as the most trusted voice. Now in their eyes, Dr. Taweesin is no more trustworthy than the authorities who they believe have covered up or even lied to them about the extent of the pandemic. Day in and day out since the pandemic outbreak, Dr. Taweesin has been warning everyone not to let his or her guard down, and no one seems to have a problem with that. But whose guard was down when 31 members of an Egyptian aircrew, with at least one of them tested positive for COVID-19, were allowed to roam around downtown Rayong province last week? And who should be held responsible when the family of a Sudanese diplomat checked in at a condominium while knowing that his 9-year-old daughter has tested positive for COVID-19?
And Dr. Taweesin has been the face of the government in urging people to observe strict public safety measures. We've been hearing it every day, Kunnat, that we have to keep our guard up.
Yep.
And most Thais are more than happy to comply with them. But why being tough only with Thai people while turning a blind eye to foreigners? That's the question that went viral on the social media. And the way Dr. Taweesin addressed the two incidents on Monday didn't help. He was seen as providing only half-truth about them. Overnight, he became a subject of criticism and ridicule, even among people who once admired him. This is the first time since he took up the job of the anti-COVID-19 spokesman that he is subject to such virulent attacks.
Some of the netizens accused Dr. Taweesin of turning a blind eye in being supportive of the government without telling the truth. A comment asked, Dr. Taweesin told us to keep our guard up, but why do you collude with politicians? You should look at Dr. Fauci from the US as an example. A comment also asked a question about who approves those VIP people to enter Thailand, especially the soldiers. Why do they stop over Thailand twice in 2 days? What if we have a second wave in Thailand? How could the doctor and the government will shoulder this responsibilities of allowing those VIPs to enter Thailand?
But the 55-year-old doctor also has his supporters, of course, could not, despite the latest incident. His admirer offered him moral support, insisting that he should not be blamed for the incident. One of them said, "We really understand you, and we would like to convey moral support to you because we hope that tomorrow will be better. It is difficult to handle people's sentiment during the crisis." Another comment said, "We would like to send moral support to the doctor. Hope you will go through this juncture of crisis." Also, another comment said, "We would like to convey moral support to you. Right now, fake news is all over the places. Don't care too much about those fake news." During a news briefing this morning, Dr. Taweesin didn't shy away from taking responsibility for what happened. The Center for COVID-19 Situation Administration takes full responsibility for both incidents. It's a great lesson for us. It helps us know where the loopholes are, and that will help us do a better job, he said. That happened in the press conference this morning.
So that is definitely a big lesson learned for the government as well. So let's give you a recap of the travel history of the Egyptian soldier who traveled to Rayong province last week. As for the travel history, he has been to other countries, as you can see on the screen right now, he has been to other countries prior to his arrival in Rayong province. During his brief stay, as we mentioned, he broke the safety protocols by visiting 2 shopping malls instead of confining himself and others in the hotel. The next day, he left the hotel for a military mission in China before returning to the same hotel in Rayong. But it was not until the 11th of July where he was tested positive for COVID-19, which was the same day he returned to his home country. So that is in Rayong province of Thailand. But those in Bangkok, there are risky areas that you should be aware of because the travel history of the Sudan family in which the 9-year-old girl has been infected by the virus. These are the places that you have to be aware of because these are the places that most of the foreigners are around, and it happens to be one of the leading business districts in Bangkok as well. Most of the places at risk are usually in the Sukhumvit area. That includes the Sudan embassy in Bangkok, which is located around Sukhumvit 16. Apart from that, there are also other schools, hospitals such as Samitiwet and Bamumrat Hospital, which is also located around Sukhumvit as well. Public parks include Sirikit Park and Benjakiti Park. BTS stations are also places you have to beware, such as Nana Station, Asok Station, and Prompong Station. Klong Thai Market, you also have to be aware of that place as well. Shopping centers such as Terminal 21, M Quartier, and Emporium. These are the places that is part of the travel history of the Sudan family in which the 9-year-old girl has been infected by COVID-19.
So right now, I hope that we are not back to square one in terms of fighting to curb with COVID-19.
Yeah, hopefully we don't see a second wave here. So just like what the CCSA spokesman has been reminding us, keep our guards up.
Yeah, so we have to be very vigilant on COVID-19. And obviously, Prime Minister must be quite alert on what happened with the mistake over soldier from Egypt. Today, he came out to have solo press conference regarding the cabinet meeting, and especially for this case, Prime Minister General Prayut Chan-o-cha has apologized over the incident in Rayong as well as the 9-year-old from Sudan. He said that such incidents came from people who disobeyed the rules. Therefore, he will take responsibility as the Prime Minister and the leader of CCSA. General Prayut has ordered the CCSA to review all measures on foreign arrivals, particularly with diplomats, where all of them must go through 14-day quarantine and strictly comply with the safety protocols. The Prime Minister also reassured that the public health measures will still be efficient even if the outbreak gets worse. So that's all the development happening in Thailand today.
Definitely the government, whether it's the Prime Minister, the CCSA spokesman, or even the Egyptian embassy in Bangkok have all expressed concerns as well as apologized to the public as well regarding such an alarming incident here.
Yeah. So right now we have to be very careful or very much aware whether this case will bring super spreader after we know the case of infection from military personnel from Egypt and the case of 9-year-old Sudanese girl. So overall we have to remain vigilant.
Especially not to mention that the travel history of the Sudan family, these are one of the very popular places, not just for foreigners, but for Thai people as well.
Yeah.
Shopping centers or even BTS stations where it's usually crowded. So these are the places that we have to be very aware of, and we have to be very careful when we travel around as well.
Yes. Probably it reminds us of the case of boxing stadium and then the case of Thong Lo and Sukhumvit, which happened before and having some super spreader.
Definitely. So probably this might be a cluster that we have to be careful before we might get a second wave in the future.
Yeah.
But hopefully we don't get a second wave.
Yeah, well, we never know really. And could Nat, with the other countries right now, they are facing some tough situation as well, especially in the US. What's really going on with California?
So with California has become one of the new epicenters of COVID-19 in the US. So apart from California, there are other states as well, such as Florida, like we mentioned yesterday, Arizona and Texas has become new epicenters of the virus. So let's focus on California. The governor, Gavin Newsom, has reimposed the restrictions as the number of infections increased in the state. He has also ordered bars to be closed, restaurants, movie theaters, zoos and museums will have to cease indoor operations, as well as the schools in LA and San Diego will have to be closed as well. Therefore, students will be studying online when school starts in August. Like we mentioned earlier, California has become one of the new epicenters of the virus. As of yesterday, there are already 326,034 infections in the state of California. So these are the total number of infections in the state only, just behind the state of New York.
So what's the reaction or what's the response after the government of California announced to close school again?
Particularly with the schools, they seem to be very happy with the response here because safety must come first anyway. So schools in LA and San Diego made a joint statement that they will be teaching online from this August. The union representing teachers in LA are very happy with the strategy here because there is no other choice apart from keeping people safe due to the spike of cases of COVID-19, including other reasons such as the lack of necessary funding from the government to open schools safely. Parents also agreed with the decision, saying that the current situation is too much of a risk. Although going back to school is definitely part of the children's development, whether it's their social or emotional well-being, the situation here is too much of a risk. So it's better to keep the students and everyone safe.
And what about closer to Thailand, in Japan?
In Japan,
there are more cases of infection.
Yes, because the virus infections continue to increase in Japan. And like we've mentioned before, Tokyo has seen a big rise here. But the new cases seem to come from a theater in Tokyo. So the Tokyo government revealed the latest cluster of COVID-19, which has been linked to a theater in the Shinjuku Entertainment District. The theater has staged a play for 6 days starring a Japanese boy band earlier this month. So the first infection was found among the cast members on the 6th of July, after which testing found 20 related cases by late Monday. Regarding the situation, the health officials, including the producers of the play, have asked the audience who went to the theaters, around 800 people who came to watch the show, to get tested for the virus. As of yesterday, Tokyo has found 119 new infections, which follows a 4-day run when the daily tally exceeded 200. So overall, Japan has reported around 23,000 infections and nearly 1,000 related deaths.
So that's at least two major developments in California and Japan that we all have to monitor and stay tuned with what's going on, what the situation in other countries as well. It seems second wave, third wave are coming up.
Especially in countries in Asia, we're seeing second wave here, and that kind of scares Thailand a bit because with the Egyptian case and the Sudan case, many have been afraid of the second wave of the COVID-19 in Thailand. So hopefully we don't get a second wave here.
Yeah. And what about other development in Thailand, Kunat?
So, and just so you know, these are the stories we've been following today. Thailand has recorded 7 new imported cases, where 6 of them came back from Egypt and another from the US. All of the cases are currently in state quarantine. The new cases brought a total number of infections to 3,227, with the death toll standing at 58. Public health officials went to a condominium in Sukhumvit area today to test staff who had close contact with the family of an African diplomat, where a 9-year-old girl was tested positive for COVID-19. Currently, the 9-year-old girl has been transferred to a state hospital for further treatment, while the rest of the family are now quarantined in a state facility. Pheu Thai Party's chief strategist Kun Hing Sudarat Keyurapan has accused the government of lowering its guard when it allowed the Egyptian soldier to enter and stay in Thailand without being monitored or quarantined. Kun Hing Sudarat also said that this was one of the mistakes committed by the government agencies, which have contributed to the spread of the virus and serious damage to the economy.
And that's all we have compiled for you regarding COVID-19 and other story that we should know for today. And Kunnat, with the situation in the US, especially the role of the media, has been very much impacted by the policy of Trump administration, especially reporters for USA Agency for Global Media has now very much affected, especially for journalists from other countries who has relied on specific type of visa. And right now we have Kun Warangkhana Chomchun, international broadcaster from VOA Thai, joining us live from DC. Good evening from Thailand, Kun Warangkhana.
Good evening, kaคุณนัทธา
And we are now with Kun Nat Bunnak as well.
สวัสดีค่ะคุณนัท
สวัสดีค่ะ
Can you tell us what's the latest situation with you concerning visa to work in the US?
Right, so right now I'm still unable to work at Voice of America since my visa expired on July 1st. And, I've been waiting for about over 10 days now. And the latest I got from the management is that USAGM, which oversees Voice of America and 4 other news networks, are looking into each case of a J1 visa holders, which are granted to foreign journalists. And they're going to review it on a case-by-case basis. But I have no answer or no information when that process is going to be done. And so right now, I'm still waiting to hear from them.
How many days you were notified in advance before your visa cannot be extended?
Actually, I wasn't notified, but I happened to set up a meeting with HR at Voice of America on a separate matter on June 25th. And, when I went to talk to her, I asked her, if my visa renewal was done or was completed, because we actually started the process back in late March or early April. I basically had to send my resume so that they can start the process. And I haven't heard anything since. So when I asked her, and she told me that the new CEO of USAGM hadn't signed the approval yet, because each employee at USAGM or Voice of America needs the CEO's signature or approval in order to process that visa. But at that time, I wasn't under any impression that there would be a problem. She seemed to reassure me that it should be okay, because from what I understand, it was quite a routine process. And the worst case scenario might be just like a day or 2 day delay. Yeah.
So what are you going to do right now?
Right now, I'm packing some of the stuff in my apartment as a preparation to leave the country, just in case the visa didn't come through. I mean, since my visa expired, I basically have 30 days left to remain legally in the US before I have to leave. And, usually leaving a country within like a month is already like quite a big task, but this is the situation is more complex and more complicated because of the COVID-19 situation, and Thailand still bans international commercial flights into the country. So in order to fly from the US to Thailand, like any Thai nationals in the US, we have to register and ask for permission from the Thai embassy in order to get on a very limited flight to get back to Thailand. So, while waiting for the answer, which I don't know when it will come, I'm also preparing to leave the country as well.
As for the process you've been going through, how hard has it been for you?
I think it's not an easy situation. I would say the most difficult thing is more like the emotional toll that it has taken on me, because in a way I have to live with the uncertainty and the lack of answer, the lack of knowledge. Every day, I lose my time to be in the US, and every day I have to think, what should I be doing today? Should I start selling my furniture? Which one's going to be the hardest to sell? And also, how am I going to tell my landlady that I won't be able to, live here throughout the entire year as I signed a contract with her. So just like living with not knowing what's going to happen to you, whether you're going to stay, whether you're going to go, I think that is a difficult aspect.
Has anyone supported you during these difficult times that you've been encountering?
Yeah, I have got a lot of support, and it kind of actually took me by surprise to have gotten a lot of support from people from my colleagues at VOA Thai and other colleagues inside VOA also. People reach out, people wrote emails and sent messages to tell me that they don't want to see me go and that they're sorry this happened to me. My former colleagues at the Wall Street Journal, at NBC, also told me that, give me support and told me to hang in there, and told me that this is, not right, this is not fair. And my family and my friends, they all ask every day how things go. And so I have a lot of support from people. I think right now we just want, me and some other foreign nationals working at VOA, just want an answer or clarity from our CEO.
Yeah, we would like to convey our moral support to you as well, Khun Warankana. And
thank you.
How many staff at VOA Thai or VOA in general are under the same boat with the same situation like you?
From what VOA reported, right now there's about 70 people who have J1 visas, which is the same visa that I have. And I believe that some of them, a few of them like me, have their visa already expired and are now in the grace periods. But the majority of them will have their visa expired in the coming weeks.
I see.
So can you explain a bit further, what is the J1 visa and how is it different from having a green card for those who may not be aware of the differences?
Sure, yeah. I just wanted to give you a little bit of a background. VOA has been hiring journalists from foreign countries to work in their foreign language services, which there are more than 40 languages, to broadcast news about the U.S. policy and things that are happening in the U.S. Around the world into, I think, some 80 countries in more than 45 languages. So in order to do that, they need someone who has specific skill and who are native to their own language to come work at VOA. And in order to do that, they sponsor J1 visa, which is a non-immigrant visa that would allow people to come to the US on a work or study basis as like an exchange visitor. And this J visa, covers a few years, but like in my case, it has to be renewed every year in order to make it valid for the coming years. And so from what I understand, there are some people at VOA who came on to J1 visa and get their visa renewed every year, which enabled them to work without any interruption.
Khun Warankana, you said there are about 70 staff at VOA Thai. VOA in general under the
Yeah.
same situation. Can you group up as the big group and contact lawyer in the US to try to help you? Is that probable?
Yeah, I mean, right now there have been, people have reached out to us, and some of them are lawyers or people who are working for the interests of journalists and reporters in the US. So we have been contacted by, people who want to help, and including offer some legal assistance. So I think we're in the process of that. I don't know how much yet, like how that's going to pan out, but definitely, we have been contacted and offered legal assistance, but we're just in the beginning or in the early phase of that.
So far, how many years have you worked with VOA Thai?
I've been with VOA Thai for just a little over a year. I was hired about in the spring last year in 2019.
And how the media landscape changed over the past 1 year that you joined VOA Thai?
I think at VOA Thai or at VOA, whatever was happening in the US, it didn't affect, how we work or how we run our operations. We still had, the same kind of independence we have to select news, to report on US news, US policy, and what's happening in the US, including issues that affect Thai diasporas in the US. So because VOA has this firewall, the mechanism that is in place to protect and to prevent VOA from being interfered by, political entities or politicians. So I would say, the media landscape here is changing just like in any country. And, of course, there's always accusation or criticism that maybe the media has been divisive or things like that. But I would say that it doesn't affect how we work at Voice of America.
But so suddenly the policy has changed after President Trump has appointed new CEO for USGAM, and that brought so much changes abruptly. What about staff who still remain at VOA? In general, are they concerned with probably unpredictable change in the future?
Yes, I think everyone or many people are worried about, what kind of changes he will bring. And so far, we know what he did. Like, he wanted to have a new set of executives running VOA and 4 other news networks under USAGM. But in terms of editorial, and we haven't seen any big changes yet. I understand that he might be reviewing how VOA and how other news networks are working right now. But I think what affects us the most is more like, the uncertainty that whether he's gonna change any practice about visa renewals for foreign journalists here or not.
And so far, I have heard that you've been working very hard, even though the crisis of COVID-19 is very intense. What have you enjoyed the most as a photojournalist at VOA Thai?
I think it's exciting to be here in the capital city of the US. I worked in Thailand and Asia for many, many years, covering Thai and Asian news for American audience for US news agency. So it's quite exciting to be in the middle of the action here, and also to report it back to Thai people, to Thai audience back home. Like maybe this is the first time that my mom understands what I do exactly, And so that is exciting. And it's also like, it's also a critical time. Everything that the US, there are many things that happen in the US affects people around the world, affects many countries, affect international policy. So it is exciting to be here, and it's a good new experience to be here.
So what would you like to say to those who aspire to become a photojournalist just like you? What would you like to say to them, or what sort of advice would you like to give?
I think just like any type of reporter, I think you have to be curious, you have to be interested in current affairs, in how things that happen affect people's life and how things are connected to each other and how it impacts people's life. And I would say, some journalists who are now working at VOA Thai worked in Thailand before, so it's not impossible for people to join VOA Thai here.
Okay, thank you very much for joining us, Khun Warankana, and good luck for all your fight in this battle. Thank you very much. And that's Khun Warankana live with us from Washington, D.C. But she will be joining us again in Thai version with Tan Lok with Thai PBS World. Khun Nat, with the environmental concern with the production, consumption of plastic, right now there is a company trying to shift their production by having plant-based plastic that can be used commercially but having less environmental impact. Take a look at this story for more details.
A company has developed a plant-based plastic that it says can be used commercially but with less environmental impact than petroleum-based plastics. Amsterdam biochemical company Aventium has created a plant-based plastic that can be used in items like bottles for fizzy drinks. Aventium hopes a major drinks producer will use the technology when the company opens its first factory in 2023. The company uses a chemical bio-based polymer called polyethylene furanoate, also called the polyester of the future. The compound is a 100% bio-based alternative to petroleum-based, commonly used in many consumer products and packaging. A thin layer of it is enough to stop gas from permeating the bottle, essential for holding beverages like beer and carbonated drinks.
And because the properties of PEF are really good from a barrier point of view, in principle you don't need this thickness for many applications. You could work with a much thinner bottle, but then of course you lack the mechanical properties. You don't have let's say a good bottle in your hands. So that's why PEF and in this case this paper bottle are such a good match, because the strength for the paper bottle will come from the paper, and you only need a thin layer of PEF for the barrier properties to have to keep the content well for a desired period of time.
The company claims that once it is thrown away, the plant-based plastic will degrade naturally in just few years rather than over several centuries. The product could compete in many areas where plastic is used. There is still research to be done. Aventium is conducting experiments to see how its plant-based material degrades in different environments. Samples are placed in containers filled with fresh and salt water, earth, and sediment. The company wants its product to be recycled but needs to know what will happen if it is thrown away instead. All too often, bottles, bags, and other packaging end up in nature, where they pollute the environment for centuries.
So we need bio-based plastics with a good or superior performance that can be recycled, that are saving CO2, that nonetheless rapidly biodegrade once they get into the ocean or in the environment. And that last part, that's something we still need to further develop and optimize.
Its production volume will be modest and therefore expensive. If this technology proves popular, the costs will come down, and more importantly, so will plastic pollution.
From New Hope that technology can help the whole world reduce pollution, Khun Nat.
Definitely. Because everyone is more aware of the environmental waste now, so we can see that there are more innovations and hopefully these innovations and technologies will come and solve these issues as well.
Yeah. And that brings us to the end of Thai PBS World Tonight. Thank you very much for watching. Right now, Kun Nat Bunnak and me have to say goodbye for now. Bye.
Bye for now.
When the world is in crisis
การแก้ไขปัญหาโควิดถือเป็นวาระแห่งชาติ
and people are looking for hope and answers, Thai PBS World is there with you with the best minds of the day. Join us on Thai PBS World Tonight, every weekdays at 7 p.m. Thai PBS World, we bring Thailand to the world.